was talking, I was wondering who he was talking about. Good Lord, don't let my wife hear that. She said, that's not him. But anyway, guys, it's a privilege and an honor to be here. Pastor Frank, thank you for allowing me to speak. Sean, thank you for asking me. When Sean gave me the text and wanted me to speak on why we need men to stand up in our community, I was very honored to do so, because in my own life, y'all heard all of those accolades that he read out, but I have to tell you, if you knew my background, if you knew my story, I got there because there were people in my life, starting with my father, right? But there were people in my life that ushered me into that, that stood in the middle of it. And, I want to start off first by saying, when we ask why should we stand up in our community, I think about the biblical story of David and Goliath, when David was going to deliver bread to the battlefield, and he heard Goliath speaking and defiling the Lord of hosts, right? He heard him, basically terrifying the army of Israel. And so David asked a question. He said, who is this person? Who is this circumcised Philistine? And so his brother heard him asking that question. And listen to what his brother said. His brother said, there you go again. Getting in other people's business. I'm summarizing, right? Getting in business that's not yours. He said, your only job, he was trying to put him in his place, right? He said, your only job is to deliver bread here. That's it. That's all you need to worry about. And then David asked him, he said, this very important question. He said, is there not a cause? He said, somebody got to ask the question, because we got a whole army over here that's afraid. We got this guy that's defiling the one and only Lord of hosts. He said, somebody should get angry enough to want to kill him, right? Somebody should stand up. It's the same thing that I say about our men today. Let me just share with you just a couple of statistics. Y'all, I'm sorry for being just a little professorial, right? But I think it's in my blood just a little bit, okay? But I just want to share this with you. I promise you I'll bring it back. When it comes to schools, and that's what I'm involved in schools, and we got something called dropouts. Kids who drop out in school from 8th grade to the 12th grade. And so the research is showing us that 71% of the kids that drop out, when you go and talk to them, there's two things that they show. One, fatherless homes, and two, very or no interaction with positive male role models. So all I have to do is add the right person into the mix, with the right character, with the right makeup, then we could change that. In terms of crime, it's the same way. That communities with no or little male interaction within a community, 44% more crime are likely to be committed by teenagers. Poverty, you take the man out of the home or out of the community, guess what? Frank, I sure hope I'm not stealing all your money. Right. If you take them out of the community, guess what happens? More likely for that community to live in poverty. I've attended a lot, spoken, and I've attended a lot of workshops, guys, in education and poverty. And so after you hear one, you've heard them all. But someone said something the other day that just really, it turned on that light in my head. They said that poverty is not natural. It's not natural. That there's an answer for it. It really doesn't even have to happen. So when I think about this, and I think about why we should stand up in our community, first of all, the man that's standing up in our community, it needs to be a certain kind of man, right? The man that's in our homes, the man that's in our communities. We don't need the man in our homes or in our communities if he's playing the video games along with the children and they're not doing nothing else, just another piece of furniture, right? First of all, we need somebody in our homes and in our communities. And Frank, I thank you for the Bible study that we did the other day. We need somebody in our communities that's following the teachings of Christ. Right. That's following the teachings of Christ. And then they're engaged. It's one thing to be there, but it's another thing to be involved. Right. if you don't mind, I'd like to be transparent just a little bit about my own family. You know, my father's my hero, but he never lived in a home with me. So, you know, and then, you know, he wasn't an educated man. I don't know what, every time I asked him, Daddy, what grade did you go up to? It changed, 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade, depending on the day that I asked him, right? But that did not stop him from knowing everything that went on in my house. And that did not stop him for providing discipline in my house. I lived with my grandmother, and all I had to do is my grandmother just had to say, you want me to call your father? No, it's all right. My dad was a boogeyman, right? That's all right. And he drove this taxi cab, this big old taxi cab for 30-something years. And everybody in the community knew him. And one of the things he would do is he would always say, you know, I want you to learn. I want you to learn from me. As a matter of fact, guys, on my graduation, he used to let me go to prom. But graduation night, all my friends were going out and partying. I knew right after graduation I was going to have to go, and my dad was picking me up in a taxi cab. We were going to ride around all night. And we were going to listen to Temptations and all the rest of those songs, and we was going to talk. Guys, being an educator for over 20 years is some things that I learned. You know, we hear all of the statistics, but I get to see the results firsthand of what happens when we don't have fathers in the home or men in the community that's active. You know, and the strange thing about it is these people are not living that far from us. What, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? In some cases, 10 minutes. In some cases, across the track. You know, I remember this one family that I came across, that the young lady, she was 16 or 17. She was, her mom had left for 9 months, just left the home. And she was left to raise her two siblings that was in the 4th grade and the 6th grade. I think at the time she was 16, just made 16. And when we found her in a home by herself, we found them in a home by themselves, you know, begin to ask questions. And one of the questions I said, where's your father? And she told me, she said, I don't know who my father is. Nor do my other 2 siblings. And I said, where did you say your mom was? She said, she's a truck driver. When the last time you saw her? 9 months ago. That's happening in our communities. These things are happening in our communities. Y'all, look, we wrapped around service. She said, please, sir, I know you have to report us to DHR, but don't separate the family. Wow. And so we wrapped services around this child and was able to keep the family together. 2 years later, she walked across the stage to graduate. Amen. When I gave her her diploma, she cried like a baby. But I can tell you, she didn't look like she was 18. She wasn't an 18-year-old. She was much older than that. Beautiful young lady, but front teeth missing. You know, even it didn't matter how much wraparound services we were giving her, there was still something else, the life that they were exposed to. Are y'all understanding? You know, when I think about even my own life, again, when I was in my community, there were people in my community, they weren't the wealthiest people, they weren't the most educated people, but they interacted, men interacted in my life. That, you know, if we were doing something good, hey man, good job. Boy, I talked to your dad the other day, I talked to your grandmother. On your way going to the store, you're walking to the store, they're just complimenting you. We knew who our neighbors were, right? And boy, when you get into something wrong, there was those people that pull you aside gently, and they begin to talk to you. And then, fortunately, I met men who knew and loved the Lord and invited me to church. That's all it took, was just an invite to a church. And I grew up Catholic, and I went to this one church, and I was playing percussion in the school band, and so this guy said, man, I heard you on Friday nights, so I want you to come to the church. I want you to play. That's how this is hook, right? Come to the church and play with us sometime. And I went to the church and I heard someone speak about the Lord that I had never heard him speak like that before. That's all it took, was an invite from someone who I respected. And even as a grown man, it didn't matter what was the race. It didn't matter what was the socioeconomic. Even as a grown man, people spoke into my life and said, hey, I like the path that you're going on. I know you got your master's, but I think you need to go and and get your PhD, because you can help and you can identify. So as men, one of the things that when I talk to people today, they say, well, I can't give. I have nothing to give. I don't have any money. I don't have any education. You can say that because you have an education. Man, that's not true. Most of the people who intervened and interceded in my life to help me get where I was, I guarantee if I go back and do a poll in my immediate neighborhood on who all graduated from high school, I know nobody went to college. Those were the people that pushed me and motivated me further than I could ever go. Y'all, like to conclude with this. It wasn't, my first son, my first child was a male. And I raised him as a male. But I promise you, it wasn't until I had a daughter that I truly began to understand about fatherhood. Because, you love your daughter so much. And boy, it's the most precious thing in the whole world, right? But I guarantee you, I want to raise that young lady to that someday the young man that she marries and meets treats her the same way that I do. And sees her the same way that I do. That's important. So, if I was just to concentrate just on my family, if I were to concentrate just on my wife and my family, that's not enough. That's not enough. I got to go into my community and I got to bring everything that I have. And I got to give it to the people that's there. And men, I know I've been talking a lot about children, but I also want to tell you, there are a lot of men that need you too. There are a lot of other men that need us as well. Men that have not been fathered, men that have not been mentored, that need another man who understands them to say, it's going to be okay. That needs another man that says, I know where you are. I know you can't share. I know that pride, but it's okay. Look, I'm going to end with that. Doc, I only had 5 minutes. I think I did 10, okay? Thank y'all very much.
What an amazing job sharing. What an amazing job. Let's give him one more round of applause. Next up, we have another special man to share, and his name is Bruce Breelin. He is a local hero here. He was graduating from Berry High School. He received a scholarship to play baseball at Auburn University. Got some fans out there. They won the SEC and were in the College World Series during the time he was there. After he graduated, he began coaching and teaching. Has spent well over, I was just going to cut it at 20, well over 20 years coaching and teaching. Has been a head basketball coach and football coach, has taken basketball teams to the Final Four and state championship, has 2 state championships in football, and has been named Coach of the Year 7 different times. 7 different times, and last but certainly not least, he is married to his best friend and supporter in the world, Ms. Donna Breelin. Please give a hand and a warm welcome to Coach Bruce Breelin.
It's hard to follow, and I told Dr. Gonsoulin, I said, it's very hard to follow that. I should have gone first. We're going to build that up. Those accolades are really wonderful and nice, but reality comes in when a young man comes up to you and tells you, Coach, when you said this, I'm talking about 15 years ago, when you said this, I really held on to that when you said that in our locker room. It's always been something that's been so important to me. I didn't remember saying it. I didn't remember making a profound statement.
Right.
So the influence that men have over younger men is just phenomenal. It's just tremendous. And I'm so honored that you have me here. I told Sean that, and I feel very blessed that I'm here. But as I heard Dr. talk before this, I was that other guy. I was the guy who didn't have education. It wasn't important to me. My father died when I was 8. My mother died when I was 15 years old. And so when I got my report card, I just received it and handed it back to him. I lived in kind of on my own for a couple of years until the courts finally found out halfway through my senior year in high school. And so by the grace of God, literally by the grace of God, because there was not a man that stepped into my life and said, let me mentor you or guide you. And I played sports, and there wasn't a coach there that stepped up. And so, but my interest in sports, and then becoming saved through the Lord, that's the only thing that really kept me where I needed to go. And there's so many people out there that don't have that I guess luxury of being in the church, and they have no direction and they have no place to go. And those are the ones, if you look at the word mentoring, and as I was thought back about my coaching career, and the thing I thought was, one thing I always say is a coach is a great teacher and a great motivator.
That's right.
And that, you look at that and I think, well, that's X's and O's. And I say, no, that's talking about developing young men to be the kind of man they need to be. So coaching is like parenting.
That's right.
And you've got to have those things and those qualities in you to be a good mentor or a good parent. And if you notice the word mentor, and I just thought about it as I was looking it up on the screen, the first 3 letters in it say men. I mean, it couldn't say any more than that right there. And I was looking at a story that I saw where it was in South Africa, and they were having an overpopulated elephant of the population. So they decided to open up hunting for the male elephants, for the adult male elephants. So they did, and they took their offspring, the young ones, and they put them in parks. And they noticed in one of the parks, and it happened throughout the whole area, but they noticed one park particularly, the elephants, as they became the teenage years of the elephant, they killed 35 rhinoceros, they killed 35 rhinos. Because they did not have anything to mentor them, they did not know how to behave. So they took 6 bull elephants and they put in that park. And immediately there was no more chaos. The young elephants learned how to act, how to be adults, just by watching these 6 elephants they put in there. And what a great story that is to be able to say, what an example, because we have so many young people right now that are just out there. They have no direction, they have no anything to fall back on. They don't have sports necessarily to fall back on. And if you look on TV these days, is that all the time? That's not really something that they should fall back on. Look at what goes on with the attitudes and the way kids act when they score touchdowns and when they do the kind of things that they're doing character-wise on the field. And I'm a big Auburn fan, but so many times I watch a player that, to me, does not represent what he needs to represent on that field. And I think, come on, coach, get control. Show these guys how they're supposed to act. Don't allow them to act however they want to act. Okay. So anyway, that is just, I guess, my plight in life is it's hard to enjoy a football game because I'm so much into watching what goes on there. But I want to challenge each and every one of you to man up. I want to challenge you to take that responsibility that a man needs to have. A man needs to be tough, and a man needs to be loving.
That's right.
And a man needs to show compassion.
That's right.
And a man needs to show care. And it's almost like men don't know how to behave anymore. I mean, it's just becoming such a conglomeration of from this extreme to this extreme, and we've got to be able to show the young people. And I have coached in so many different situations. I have coached from 2A to 7A. I've been a head coach for years and years. I've coached in predominantly white schools. I've coached in predominantly black schools. I've coached in schools where they have a large Asian population, a large Hispanic population. We have a man problem, and it is universal. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have anything to do with race. It doesn't have anything to do with the social economic background. just like he said, it's widespread in the United States of America. Until men begin to step up, until men to be able to take on their own responsibility, we will continue to have, because the problem is growing, people. It's not getting smaller. You know, and I'm not used to standing behind a podium. I'm used to walking around the locker room and talking, and just stand here is really tough for me, just to stand here and not just really get fired up and let us all get ready to go out and play a ball game. But they did a reality show on my school where Jerry Rice came in, and he was with us 8 days, and he came over the house and cooked out steaks, and it was a show where they narrowed it down to one school. It's called Friday Night Impossible. And it's what all the things that should not happen on a Friday night. You know, as far as the community going through hurricanes, going through oil spills, the kids that are having problems with, you know, parents and not having a home. And Jerry came in to mentor those kids. And it was just tremendous for him to come in and watch him. And what a great man Jerry Rice is. Oh, and humble and tremendous. He was there, like I said, he was there with us 8 days. I was mic'd up for 8 days. My wife was mic'd up in the stands, she is definitely my best supporter up there. But, you know, they came in and they filmed that. And it was a reality show. It's an hour-long show. They shot 1,000 hours worth of film for a 1-hour show. And you talk about mentoring. Now, Jerry Rice could have anything he wants. He doesn't have to come to Bayou Battery, Alabama to mentor young men. It wasn't just for the TV show. So we were giving away, and I was in the locker room. This is where I was going. I was in the locker room talking to the team. Of course, you know, being mic'd up, it was on TV. And of course, I finished the talk, and they all run out in the locker room. And Jerry comes up and says, he says, "Man, you got me fired up and ready to play." Now, you know, Jerry's 50 years old. And I didn't know this, but another camera crew was with my wife there. They came out from around the lockers. And they come out, and we presented Jerry with something just to tell you what kind of young man Jerry is and the kind of men we need. We gave him a picture of the team, and everybody had signed that picture. And Jerry started crying. And he stopped the filming of the show, and he walked off. And so we looked at his assistant, and he goes, "You don't understand, nobody ever gives Jerry Rice anything. Everybody's always got their hand out, wanting something." So my point is, Jerry Rice, who has everything, but yet he humbles himself to be the man that we all need to be, that we all should be. So as you're sitting there right now, and I don't know why I got into coaching. The Lord had to direct me that way. I don't know why Sean Colosimo tells me that he watched me mentor young men. It's not something that I consciously think about. It's got to be in your heart, and it's put into your heart by the Lord. You can't be that man unless the Lord's living inside of you. You just can't. It has to be real. It has to come from inside of you. So I not only challenge you to be that man, don't be afraid to be a man. Don't be afraid to be a loving man. Don't be afraid to give. Don't be afraid to be there for someone. But I ask you also to look out there and see the young men that need you. It doesn't have to be your own son. There's so many kids I have raised. There's so many kids that call my wife mother, mom. There's so many young men that call me all the time from 50 years ago. They're 50 years old, I'm sorry. 50 years old, and I've been coaching 35 years. So many of them come to me still now, even today. I eat lunch, I promise I ate lunch at least 2 or 3 times a week with players that I had from 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 20 years ago. Because they're still in need. They're still in need of a male figure in their life.
That's right.
And it's not Bruce Breelin. it could be anybody that happened to be in my situation that showed a little love and care. So I challenge each and every one of you men to be that in someone's life. Not just your kid's life. Because when you're in education, you see so much of what's going on right now. And I feel blessed. I appreciate you having me. Again, if I was talking football, we'd all get pretty pumped. I'm pretty passionate about football. I love basketball, but I'm very passionate about football. But I had young men that were on the shrimp boat before they ever came to school. They had no home. At Woodlawn, I had a young man breaking into the field house. Actually, it was underneath the stadium just to sleep every night because he had nowhere to put his head at night. Those are the kind of young men that we want to actually grow up and lead this country. And look where they are right now. He didn't quit school. He wanted to be in school. He didn't quit football. He wanted discipline. He wants it. All young men want it. We just got to be there for him. And please, and I pray that you will step up and be that person. I retired after 35 years, I retired for 3 months. My wife says, shortest retirement ever. Because the Lord put on my heart, you're still passionate. Don't sit around and not do anything. Get back in there. So I'm working at a Christian, 1A Christian school now. And those young men, it doesn't matter if it's Christian school, private school, doesn't matter. Those young men have needs. They need us. Men, they need us. We've got to get out there and be in their lives. Thank you for having me.
Let's give one more hand on the way out. All right, so I have an even more challenging task than Coach Breelin did because I have to follow both of them. I feel sorry for myself. I'll try to get past it real quick. We're going to share about why we need men to step up in our families. If you turn over to Proverbs chapter 16, verse 2. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 2. We'll read that in just a moment. But probably the biggest thing I've learned, I've been married 13 years. My wife and I were able to celebrate that yesterday. She is my better half. You'll like me better when you meet her. She's great. 13 years of marriage. We have a 10-year-old daughter. And so, it's an honor to be able to share about, why we need men to step up in our families. Even though my family really is still a bit young. I've learned one lesson that has really sunk down deep. Now, I still need reminders of that lesson, but it is one lesson I cherish from God about my family and how God has taught me to step up more within my family. And I think the biggest thing is I want to ask you is, I think what's innate in all of us as men is that we understand that there is a role for leadership for us. How we lead is, probably pretty debatable. And so for me, even though I knew God, somehow kind of way, it was like, I know God, but I still want to do things my way with a little bit of God in it. It was more about, okay, I'm going to lead my family to my goals and my dreams and my visions. But I wasn't really thinking of, am I leading my wife and daughter closer to God? Because there's not always an overlap between the two of those. And it definitely wasn't in my case. And I remember a specific instance where I was actually offered a coaching job by Coach Breelin down in Mobile. And I was contemplating moving my whole family down to Mobile. And it would have been amazing from a coaching standpoint because it's everything I ever wanted. Because he was the type of coach I wanted to be. And I remember some of those things. It wasn't just the players sucking into some of those sayings. I still to this day can remember his sayings as I was on his staff and we coached together. One of them was coach every play, right? So don't just get on kids when they mess up. Tell them when they do the right thing. That didn't just help me as a teacher, that helped me as a father. Because sometimes you can just be like, You know, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't, and that's all you're saying to your kids. I wasn't stepping up in the way I needed to. And so I was really contemplating this move, but I was really struggling, and so I called, you know, the Bible really talks about getting advice and being humble about that. So I reached out to some men I felt like were wise in the Lord, one of those being Frank, but also other men that were in other states, men that were elders who had known what it was like to raise up a family in the Lord. And every single one of them, without talking to one another, asked me the same question when I talked to them about my job proposition. I was pumping it up too, you know, I was selling it big. I got this job opportunity, I could do all this stuff for God down here. I could do coaching, I could do this and I could do that, and I'm selling it, and I'm selling it, and I'm selling it. And every single one of them, even though they didn't talk to each other, said, "How's your wife feel about it?" Hadn't really thought about that. I mean, I thought about it, but hadn't really taken into consideration the way I needed to. About all the collateral that would come from a decision like that. So it was hard for me when I first heard that, as I wrestled through that, about whether this was about what I wanted and what my wife wanted, or was this a message God was giving me through other people. And you know, as men, sometimes we can be really hard on our wives and expect them to follow our leadership. And we have these high expectations for our wives to be surrendered and supportive to whatever we decide to do. And we'll put more pressure on them to be supportive to us in our decisions than we will put pressure on ourselves to humble ourselves before God and seek His will for our lives. And maybe that's not you, that's me. I know for a fact that's me. And that's what I realized that I was doing. I was putting so much pressure on my wife being ready for this decision. I was putting more pressure on her than I was putting on myself to be humble before God, to really seek God. And I had to humble myself. I had to fast. I had to pray. I had to keep getting advice. And it wasn't a one-time talk. It was something I had to fight through. So this proverb here in Proverbs 16:2, chapter 16, verse 2 says, "All a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord." You know, I think as men, we can always justify what we want. But my question is, are we allowing God to weigh our motives for it? Are we allowing God to weigh whether our decision is righteous or not? Because it's not about being right. If we're truly going to be men of God in the community, and men of God in mentoring, and men of God in our families, it can't just be about what's right. It's got to be about what's righteous. And are we demonstrating the godly love that God has shown us? Are we demonstrating that to our wives and to our children? Do they see Christ in us, in our families? On that note, what I'd like to do is take a moment and prepare us to pray for our contribution. Amen. Let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, you are the great giver. You are compassionate, you are holy, and you are righteous. You created men to be more than what we are, Father. You stoop down and have plans to make us great. Your word can reach deep down inside us and make us so much more than what we are. Father, I pray that you have mercy on us, and that we open wide our hearts to you. That we open wide our hearts to hear your word and where it's calling us to obey. That, Father, that we would be more surrendered to you in your will and how it's moving in our lives, and more surrendered to letting your kingdom reign within us and reign as we advance it throughout the world, Father, knowing that that's the most important thing. You have all given us so much to be right here and right now. Father, I pray that we remember that we are being well-fed spiritually right now. And that we in turn want to be generous back. Father, just like we pay for a good meal, just like we pay for an education, Father, that we would have the respect when we're being taught spiritually to esteem that and contribute to that here now. We pray all this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name.